Mara Yamauchi up against a couple of young pretenders, Gemma Steele and Charlotte Purdue, and they spoke to Phil yesterday.
This will be my first race since November, so I want to test out where I am, get my racing legs back as I prepare for the Olympic marathon.
I think I'm running top form at the minute, just improving all the time. Hopefully it can continue, and like the sky's the limit.
This weekend I'd like to be first Brit and I love to run a PB on the roads. I'm pretty fit right now, so I guess anything is possible.
I think it's great that there are some younger athletes coming through in the 10k and the marathon, and hopefully the 10k runners will move up to the marathon, because Paula, Joe Pavey and I, we're all knocking on 40, and I think most of us will be retiring reasonably soon. So it would be a shame if once we've retired there was nothing. We've got experience, but you know, having the younger athletes snapping at your heels keeps you on your toes.
I definitely think you can learn a lot from them. At St Mary's, where I train, she's often training in the altitude chamber that I train in. I see how hard she trains, so it's definitely inspirational to see running alongside her in a race. I don't think I've ever raced her before, so that would be pretty cool.
Raced against.
Learn from, but equally, I can learn from the younger athletes, and I think I'll have a very, very good run on Sunday against some stiff opposition.
I don't really like to see myself like starstruck by anyone, because yeah, they're just another runner at the end of the day, and I do want to beat them. So I wouldn't see her as like, wow, it's Mara, or wow, it's Paula. I sort of see her as another competitor now. So yeah, definitely want to beat her still.
That is set to be a super race. The Kenyans, also the battle of the Brits there, Mara Yamauchi, Gemma Steele, Charlotte Purdue. As you can see, they're pretty much all set to go. Time to hand over to the expert voices of Paul Dickinson and Steve Crack.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Good morning, everybody. Conditions pretty good here in Manchester this morning for a 10k run. I'm looking forward to this women's elite race. Some of the British contingent there in that little piece of ET. Lynette Massai will start as the favourite though from Kenya. And we also are looking down that list, Irene Jeritic, the Commonwealth Marathon champion, coming to test herself against a pretty strong field here. So let's just go through a few introductions on the start line. Mara, how much talent. Charlotte Purdue, one of those who'll be looking for a good run here, and hoping that she can move on to chasing the 10k qualifying time on the track as well. Mara Yamauchi, of course, London 2012 will be all about the marathon, already selected. Forward to that next year, so. A few others in the field will be looking for a good performance. As I said, conditions are pretty good this morning. It's 10-11 degrees. A bit of wet weather yesterday, but that sort of disappeared by about midday. So it's a bit of weather forecasting. Right, it is 11 degrees. Wind from the northeast at about 4 miles an hour. They're pretty protected in the city. When they head out towards Salford, can get a little breezy along that road, but that's something which they won't have to contend with too much today. Have a look at exactly where they're going to go. Show you how well you know Manchester, but to the start, a bit of a twisty turny route out onto the main road towards Salford, past famous Old Trafford of course, and then into a new part of town, where of course BBC Sport now based, and then they head back into the city. Finish on Deansgate, which will welcome all 40,000 or so runners right throughout the morning into the early afternoon, and of course later on this afternoon we'll have the great city games as well. Track built already waiting for that. So a whole gamut of athletic talent for you today here in Manchester. Just a little note as well, Mara Yamauchi in that film beforehand was talking about Joe Pavey. Actually in Manchester last night, Joe Pavey ran a Olympic A standard for 5 kilometres on the track. Really good performance from Joe, and you know, she was passing on best wishes to everybody today, but Joe herself with her eyes on a 10k spot, and she now has the bonus, I guess, of having run that A standard over 5 kilometres, but she may well come up against the likes of Charlotte Purdue and maybe Gemma Steele in that quest for a 10k spot. So she'll be, I'm sure, having half an eye on the performance of the two youngsters today. Morning, Paul.
Morning, Steve. Morning, everybody. Well, as you said earlier on, conditions almost perfect. It is a little bit on the chilly side. It's overcast, but that's good for some of the novice runners who'll be starting off on their quest on this 10k course in just a little while. But as the elite women get us away here, interesting to see two of the featured athletes that you mentioned before, Steve, Jelatic and Masai, the two experienced marathon runners from Kenya, just tucking in behind that leading group. Mara Yamauchi there leading. And a contrast of experience, a contrast of styles. In Charity, on the left-hand side of the screen there, wearing the white vest, European bronze medalist. There's the Italian, Gemma Steele, tucked in behind. Mara Yamauchi there really is setting out a bit of a pace here. The long, languid style, though, of Masai and Jelatic.
Just one or two others to point out in that league group. You can probably see right at the back, blonde hair, just hidden at the moment, Benita Willis from Australia. Benita has already qualified there, you can just see her. She's qualified for the Olympic marathon as well. She's delighted with that, 2:28 clocking recently. Ejafini, the athlete on the just behind Mara Yamauchi there, pulled out of London Marathon. You might remember her running well in the early stages there, but actually didn't finish, so she's looking to put a better performance in here today, obviously. But I think it's interesting that Mara has set out so quickly. She said herself she's been raring to go, really looking forward to racing. It's been a while, and she probably wouldn't be that interested just coming in, hanging around. There's plenty of quicker women behind her. She's more interested in how fast she can run here today, I think, rather than the position and everything gearing towards London. And of course, I'm pretty sure.
Certainly good to see Mara Yamauchi stretching the field out. When you consider some of the British winners we've had in the past, Jo Pavey twice and Helen Clitheroe in 2011, well, you heard her say that it's a bit of a daunting prospect to go up against the likes of Charlotte Purdue and Gemma Steele. And Great Britain really has, not an embarrassment of riches, but certainly a crop of good young athletes who aim to replace the likes of Helen Clitheroe and Jo Pavey, and of course Paula Radcliffe at the top of women's distance running. But at the moment, it's the old timer, Mara Yamauchi, who's stretching the field away and still looking very comfortable at the front, Steve.
Well, it's obviously early stages. We're trying to get us to Mara Yamauchi leading in this women's 10k in these early stages. Just a thought, you're picking up from what you were saying, Paul, about sort of new runners coming through. I mentioned Jo Pavey last night. There's actually 3 women have run this 5k A standard already. Steph Twell and Barbara Parker and Jo Pavey. And obviously Steph Twell may up for the 1500. Barbara Parker I expect to run the steeplechase in the Olympics. Jo Pavey, as I said, might run the 10k. So it's really interesting that I think quite a lot of athletes are running well and are almost hedging their bets a little bit as well as to if you get an A standard, at least if you've got an A standard, even in the event you're not 100% sure you might do. I think people really wanting to get qualification out of the way, give themselves some options as well, which is good to see. And lots of British athletes running very, very well, even though we're still, well, we're not even through May yet. And I must admit, it doesn't really feel as though the summer's begun, not weather-wise anyway. It's been pretty rotten, hasn't it, around the UK for the last 3 or 4 weeks, but athletes all over the world have been going well, and this event here in Manchester today, part of the preparation for the summer.
Well, just off the back of that group now, beginning to struggle a little bit. Looks like Benita Willis, formerly Benita Johnson of Australia. And there's, 7 athletes there who are really forging ahead. Very long striding Jelatic in the orange vest, just behind Lynette Masai, who looks so easy. And the 2 Italians are there as well, wearing the white vest. In Charity and Ejafini. He's formerly Moroccan. And from Bahrain as well. And there's Benita. She's about, what, 4 or 5 metres off the last marker of that first group. Just looking as though she's struggling a wee bit. Just have a look at the gap. In fact, it's grown to about 10 metres in the course of the last 250 or so. So just going through a bit of a bad patch there. There's still Mara Yamauchi, who really is beginning, well, she's looking very strong. And she said at the beginning of the race she wanted a bit of a test of speed, and that's exactly what she's forged out for herself.
I was going to say, if that's the 3K, I hope. So if that yellow matting across there is the 3K, so that was 9:30, so that means they're running 3:10s. So they're about, what, 31:40 pace, do your maths. So that's pretty quick. It's not course record. There you go, 9:29. So it's a good, strong pace set by Mara Yamauchi. It's faster than the likes of Gemma Steele and Charlotte Purdue have ever run on the roads before. They haven't run inside 32 minutes, so that's something which they're pushing themselves into new territory. I wouldn't think would trouble the net Masai too much, and Changewo still with that group as well, and Geretich. And it's only Benita Willis who's just struggling with that. I don't think, I was going to say she'd be too bothered. I said her eyes on the marathon very much in the summer. I keep saying in the summer, when it comes. So Edgefini just now helping with some pace duties. I have to say how well Gemma Steele and Charlotte Purdue have been conducting themselves. Charlotte's had a fair share of injuries for a 20-year-old athlete. Has managed to come through a couple of operations already. Keeps coming back stronger. Gemma Steele, local girl from Charnwood, just up the road. The red vest just behind Charlotte Purdue. Gemma's had a cracking 2012 so far, really pushed herself into the sort of upper echelons of distance running, particularly on the roads and country. I'm going to hesitate to talk about football today. Thankfully, Brendan is not sitting alongside me and gloating about the season that his team have had this year. And of course, gloating honours belong to the blue side of Manchester. It's all blue at the minute as well, isn't it? Chelsea last night.
Certainly is. Charlotte Purdue just on the right-hand side there, just running behind Sciaffini of Italy, alongside Incerti there. She's already run in the Olympic Stadium, very successful British Universities Championships. Was held there, well, about a fortnight ago, and she won the 5,000 metres there. So, one of the first athletes to run on the Olympic track. It was a great experience for all of those students. And for the first time in the race, Mara Yamauchi there just giving way to first place for the time being. And the Italians looking very fit at the moment and certainly stretching everybody away.
It's been a great year already, hasn't it, for sport, I guess. Lots of drama in the football season, and I'm pretty sure lots more to come in the summer. One or two of the athletes here will be hoping to be part of that in a big way. Giuffini just really starting to push things on a little bit here. The pace has been very strong so far. Gemma Steele suffering and gone off the back of that group, and Mara Yamauchi doing her best to stay with it. But a real injection of pace, and they've been strong enough anyway. And good to see Charlotte Purdue, the one who looks the most comfortable in it. Masai, as ever, with that lovely languid style of hers just on the curve. Geretich on the tall figure with the red vest. Changewo alongside her. Mara just having to really fight to try and stick with the pace that Edgefini is now setting. So disappointed with her performance, Edgefini, in London. There's Gemma Steele. Well, I said they were operating in personal best territory for her, and if anything, picked things up a little bit in the last half a mile, and that's why she's just starting to struggle. She's got to work hard now, really concentrate. Had a good start to the race, and if she's to get anything out of it, she's going to have to really knuckle down here, try and concentrate. Not easy when you're on your own. She'll be disappointed to see Charlotte Purdue in that group. See, she's just checking her watch there to think, well, Charlotte's really running much quicker than she might have expected. So good for Charlotte, but is she going to pay for that later on? Doesn't look like it at the moment, though. Looks nice and relaxed, really strong.
can't quite see her. We'll come back to Lynette Massey in just a moment, but there is Gemma Steele. She stayed with the group for 3. Gemma Steele has just lost touch. She's in no man's land at the moment. And we're down to 6. And the athlete I was just talking about, Lynette Massey, just on the far side of that group there. Just look at her stride. She is so easy. It's just a long, languid, relaxed running style. Looking absolutely superb. She looks easy, doesn't she?
And she can sprint as well. If you remember Berlin 2009, the World Championships, she's very deceptive, Lynette Massey. Looks that sort of stride. Look how she's just sort of drifted to the front here. Hasn't really made much effort to do so. She can do that. She can change pace without you really realising. Doesn't need to do it here at this point in the race, but on the track she has that ability to do that as well. Just not sure whether Lynette is going to be as big a threat this summer. I hope she is, because I think she's a great athlete. Things moving at pace already this year in terms of people putting in fast times, and all of a sudden cadence changes. 5k just got through in about 15:50, so that's spot on, or 47, we're getting official time there. Course record, incidentally, set by Berhane Dire, the great Ethiopian, 6 years ago now, 31:07. We're well off that in terms of the first half of the race, but I have a feeling that Massey now really setting a stall out to run a hard last 5k. And look at that, she's completely decimated the field in the space of about 300-400 metres. Nobody able to go with that change of pace, those long legs stretching out, and others left trailing behind her. 4. So the second half there is undoubtedly going to be quicker, and there's this little downhill section now as they head back towards the city centre. And I'm just watching the clock that we've got second and third that we've just seen, and currently in 4th place, as far as I could see, was Charlotte Purdue. There she is, there's Charlotte Purdue, still running really strong, and this will be a really, well, I think a great confidence booster. If she runs inside 32 minutes here, and just the A standard on the track for the 10,000 metres is 31:45, and road races don't, of course, always translate onto the track at all, but most people end up running a bit quicker on the track than they do on the roads. So this will be a real confidence booster for Charlotte. She can get in and around the 32-minute mark. Her best before today was 32:10. That was in the Great Island Run. She was actually beaten by Gemma Steele just by 4 seconds or so, but she's certainly well ahead of Gemma Steele at the moment. But Charlotte Purdue looking good, looking strong in 4th, and maybe having a chance of running down the 2 athletes ahead of her. But that gap, Paul, at the moment is just getting bigger. Massey
And Jafini 7 seconds behind her. Changueo further 4 seconds back. I wonder if we'll get a split for Charlotte Purdue. There we are. I wonder if she's gaining on 3rd place. She was in quite close contention last time we saw her, and we can see the first 3 there. Charlotte Purdue just out of shot, but it really is a good run by the Briton nevertheless. Mara Yamauchi, the early leader there, 28 seconds off the lead, back in 6th place.
Well, if Charlotte can maintain that pace, so she'd have to run the last 2 kilometres at about 3:14, 3:15 pace, which is about the sort of pace she's been running, and then she would be inside 32 minutes, or just on the 32-minute mark. Slow kilometre was up through between 6 and 7, and there's a bit of a rise up there as you head back towards Old Trafford. This kilometre that currently was a bit quicker, that's because of that little downhill section, and now it's pretty flat all the way through. A bit of a rise up towards the finish right at the end into Deansgate, but the big crowds are there, you know you're near the finish, and usually most athletes can find a little bit extra. Mara Yamauchi set off with real intent, gave them a good start to this race. Wouldn't have expected Mara to contend with Lynette Massey. I think she might be a little bit disappointed that Charlotte Purdue's well ahead of her. She's in 6th place at the moment, and those gaps quite significant. You see Charlotte Purdue probably about 60-70 metres ahead. But Mara will keep running strong, all of those miles in the legs. And as I said today, really just a little bit of a test, a little bit of a blowout, if you like, after all those months of hard training as she prepares for the marathon in the summer. Probably won't be disappointed if the weather's like this when the marathon is held, to be honest.
No, I don't suppose any of them would be. Well, they're very close to the last quarter mile, the last 400 metres now.
When you just heard, you will come across the line in 4th place. There she is. Looked around at the clock. I reckon about 32.10 probably for Cheryl Purdue, which will be very close to her best. That would equal it. Cherty and then Mara Yamauchi. Good solid run from Mara.